Alright, so we are on film number 2 of 25 plus of James Bond, not including the latest No Time to Die. We're going a little bit further ahead from Dr. No to From Russia with Love in 1963. So, it turns out that Dr. No himself was part of a very interesting group called Spectre, which I forgot what its acronym for. But he was indeed a high-ranking official, and they feel saddened by his loss. They said, "Okay, we're going to also introduce a couple of other people: number 5, number 3, and number 1." So, of course, with number 1, we never see his face, but we know a trope that very. He is the inventor of the trope, where he's an evil villain, but he's also petting a cat, just to show quite the dichotomy going on between his pure evil intentions and the fact that he would not hurt an animal, which is very interesting, to say the least. You know, that's Q, by the way. And yes, the stakes in this one are indeed a lot more, I guess you could call, global, which I liked. This felt like the evolution, if you will, of the franchise. This was a nice, overall, a very good film. Yeah. But yeah, it's like the plot. It's like it deals with the Cold War tensions going on between America and Russia and things like that. But of course, it's like in the book, like it's like, hey, also get this Lecter decoder for like messages and stuff like that, like if it was being done in World War II to help intercept German German cryptography or something like that, encoded messages and stuff like that. So that's this movie's take on that Ian Fleming himself did indeed write. So we get a nice, very of the time type of story, but it's done in a way that it felt like the progenitor of the tension happening. It's not like it's just there just for the sake of being there. It felt like this was to more capitalize and also introduce tropes that would become very common very much later throughout the stories, which I liked. And I'm like, yes, this is the evolution that I wanted. Of course, this is in between the standard action adventure Dr. No and the truly later unforgettable characters, let's say Goldfinger and Jaws and what goes on with Thunderball and everything else. So it's like this was the kind of middle point, if you will, and it feels like it, which is a good thing. And because this is the evolution of the franchise, it also feels like it's more broad, mostly taking place and being shot in Istanbul. At the same time, with all the various locales and sets, was it in Pinewood Studios in England? It feels like a sequel, if you will, to everything. It's a sequel that it feels right. It feels like this is the global scale going on. So it's I really like this one. Okay, I really like this movie, albeit it does take a little bit to get going. But at the same time, during like when Bond is visiting his girlfriend Sylvia, he's dealing with MI5. He is dealing with trying to get all the information about the Lector, Lektor. It's interesting enough to where I didn't feel bored. I thought, okay, I like this. It could be a little jumbling at first, but eventually all the pieces come together for the puzzle, if you will. and it just is like it's not boring. It at the same time, it's like this is 1963. They were still experimenting and trying to configure everything. So yeah, of course, some of the highlighted scenes are when they're going with this one guy, a Gallery Bay or something. I forgot his name. He has a mustache, and they're going to see where all like the members of Spectre are going, sneaking in on him. Very specifically, he has, by the most Deus Ex Machina way, he has this periscope that he can use to spy on them. After going through some canals that Emperor Constantine built in 1600s or whatever, and I'm just like, the incredible leaps of logic for that. It's so hilarious. It's actually great, and I'm like, yes, I want to see this. I want to see more of this stuff going on. Oh yeah, when they go through the canals, looks nice. The highlight though is Sean Connery being on an Orient Express. This would be one of the two occurrences of him being on a train. The second one is, of course, Agatha Christie's murder on the Orient Express. And, you know, he's a high-ranking official, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe he's got another movie with a train. I don't know. That'd be interesting to see. Yeah. Of course, you know, it's like when they're having dinner. Of course, there's this one guy named Donald Grant who manages to, in the beginning, eliminate a person dressed as James Bond as part of the this Russian group or whatever that he's working with. You know, it's pulled Spectre, and you know he's befriending Bond. These two eventually get into a quite the skirmish, if you will. About like 90 minutes in, and oh boy, that stuff is right in the close quarters. Those two really had to make it work. I don't think there was any injury, but because of how tight it was, it really is for 1963 a pretty interesting action scene. Robert Shaw would later go on to work in Jaws, by the way. So it's like, yeah, I liked it. I thought, you know, it was good. Of course, towards the end, you know, when they're getting, when they're like trying to make their way over from one country to another, there's the chase scene with the boat, and there's a whole bunch of Spectre schmucks that are coming in, and of course, yeah. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. There's also a helicopter scene that is taken, you know, influenced heavily from North by Northwest. You could tell there's some like Hitchcockian framing, camera placement, action scenes, stuff like that. Which it was a nice tribute. I will have to say that, and you know, it works overall. This movie felt like, you know, a little bit like North by Northwest, but at the same time, and maybe The Man Who Knew Too Much to a smaller degree. But at the same time, this is James Bond we're talking about. It's like Cary Grant is not in this one, but at the same time, it just works so well. Yeah, of course, right at the ending, with the Spectre schmucks on their boats and everything, it is truly quite the quick but explosive finale that I liked, and I'm like, oh yeah, this movie was awesome. This is Sean Connery's personal favorite role as Bond. This was, what was it? Something to do with JFK's in his top 10 novels that came out that year, so he got a private screening of this. And this would be the second to last. This would be like the last finished movie that Ian Fleming himself got to witness before he died of, I forgot what he died of. And also Terrence Young, the director, there was like tight quarters when they were like shooting the helicopter scene, so he somehow got trapped inside, and he had managed to have he had an air bubble because he was underneath for like a couple hours. So, you know, they think, oh, we need to rush him to a hospital. got his arm in a sling, got himself recovered with water, and said, "All right, resume filming." So just to give you an idea of like, yeah, that is some pretty intense stuff. Yeah, some of it's like there were really any gripes about this movie is like, yeah, it would take, it's like it would take a little bit for it to get going. It does take a little bit. I'm like, it's not the worst thing to ever happen. And we still don't have the gadgets yet outside of this modified briefcase that does come in during the skirmish with Shaw and Connery. So that was a good payoff, you know. And it felt kind of Hitchcockian with the chasing with the helicopter and the boat, but those are just like the only things I would think of that one would have a problem with outside of maybe the flirting. I'm just like, whatever, who cares? So yeah, I like Dr. No, but this one is definitely better. So watch From Russia with Love. Oh, and also one other thing I want to say, there was a reference to another United Artists movie called Call Me Blonde that stars Bob Hope, and it was kind of funny to see this one schmuck coming out of this woman's mouth. So it was just interesting to see advertising going on in there. Anyway, highly recommend From Russia with Love.